All right, thank you all for tuning in to WJC 98.3 FM, your voice of music, your station. My name is Jeff Badu, and I'm a licensed certified public accountant in the state of Illinois. I'm the founder and CEO of Badu Enterprises, which is a multinational conglomerate in the finance industry. What we do is we provide a suite of financial services, including tax preparation, tax planning, financial consulting, life insurance consulting, credit repair, and all the above. I am also a wealth multiplier and a serial entrepreneur, and would definitely like to make the announcement, officially propose to my soon-to-be spouse or wife, and officially engage, essentially. So that's a very big step in life. Definitely looking forward to that chapter in life. I know it's going to be fun. I know it's not going to be your typical couple where there's fights and this and that. This is truly a relationship that was meant to be. And I'm sure I'll write a book on it one day. But today we're here to talk money talks. We'll be talking about today's topic of discussion is on real estate. So how to acquire real estate, different methods. There's some people that say, hey, I have no money to buy real estate. Well, I'm going to provide some strategies to acquire real estate without virtually any money. Or if you do have some money, there's different ways to acquire real estate. And I'll be sharing with you some strategies. We'll also be talking about the new popular opportunity zones. So this is a tax strategy that some people are aware of and some people are utilizing. I know my clients are utilizing opportunity zones. So it's definitely something major that we'll be going through as well. Before that, we'll kick it off as usual with the market report. So this report is as of last Friday, so as of June 14, 2019. So while not as robust as prior week, stocks still managed to post gains for the second week in a row. Last week started off with a bang, essentially, for the benchmark indexes. Only a slip lower by Friday as tensions in the Middle East mounted. After getting pummeled in May, stocks have slowly regained. So May, we had a terrible month. I mean, atrocious month in May. Now we've recovered in June, and stocks have slowly regained some momentum during the early part of June. Year-to-date gains for each of the indexes are in double digits, except for the global Dow, which is off by less than a half of a percentage point. Oil prices slipped again last week, while long-term bond yields remain relatively unchanged. Price of oil, as stated, decreased from $54.04 per barrel to $52.51 per barrel. Price of COMEX gold went down slightly, $13.45 to $13.44.80, so down 20 cents. But overall, we're doing really good in the market so far. So the Dow Jones is up 11.84%. NASDAQ is up 17.50%. S&P 500 is up 15.16%. And just to reiterate, the Nasdaq is composed of the top technology stocks in the world. Me personally, I only really invest in technology stocks. That's how I've built part of my wealth. Is through technology stocks, such as Apple, Microsoft, Google, AT&T, Amazon. AT&T actually really isn't a tech stock; it's a telecommunications stock, but it's still heavy in technology. As you may be aware, a lot of these companies rely heavily on technology. A lot of us today rely on technology, so why not invest in something that basically the whole world relies on? Global Dow, Russell 2000 is up 12.90%. Global Dow is up 9.58%. Federal funds rates have not changed this year, but there are signs that interest rates will actually go down pretty soon, and that's why investors are so happy and they're celebrating, is because of the fact that interest rates just might go down. Whenever interest rates go down, investors get happy. It means it costs less to borrow money. And then 10-year treasuries are down for the year, 2.68 to 2.09% for the year, so we're down 59 basis points. So there you have it. My advice, as usual, invest. Invest in the market. There's nothing to be afraid of, nothing to be scared of. This is not it. Just go ahead and invest. Everything will be fine. Everything will be okay. You can lose your money, of course, but the chances of that happening are pretty slim to none if you know what you're doing, or if you're reading, you're keeping up to date with the market, you're utilizing the experts. Always invest. Me personally, I invest every single day. Every single day of my life, I invest money into not only the stock market, but also real estate. Real estate is where I invest most of my money. Me personally, most of my wealth is tied in my businesses. So that's the primary source of everything. But you always have to have these passive sources, such as stocks, real estate, and all that good stuff. And before we get into today's segment, if you would like to ask a question, we're live on Facebook. So we're streaming live on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook at Jeff Badu, JEFFBADU. Or you can call into the studio, 773-942-7167. Once again, 773-942-7167. We are a 501c3 non-for-profit organization, so any and all donations will be accepted in order to continue the cause that we have at the station, to continue educating everyone, and to continue uplifting the communities. So with that being said, let's get into a real estate discussion. So I can't tell you how much I love real estate. I can sit here all day and tell you about my love for real estate. I started real estate really when I was a kid, when I was a child. Both of my parents are in real estate, so I was literally born into real estate. So real estate is truly where wealth is created. For 9 out of 10 millionaires that get there, 9 out of 10 millionaires that got to where they are today, including myself, was through real estate. Now, real estate wasn't the only thing. It's what got them there. But real estate probably wasn't what they started with. So very important to keep that in mind. Real estate, it's a nice asset to have in your portfolio, but it's not the only thing that you do. They say the average person needs 7 streams or so to become a millionaire. So real estate is certainly a big piece of that, but ultimately it's not the only thing. But today's discussion is on real estate, so it's important that we talk about real estate and we focus on real estate. So today we're going to focus on how to acquire investment properties ultimately. There's different strategies, and I'm just going to give it all out there. I'm just going to lay it all out, how to acquire real estate. In my opinion, the best way to buy real estate when you're fresh out, you just got out of college, you just started working, or you're just looking to get started in real estate, there's a strategy called the house hacking strategy, where essentially you buy a 3 or 4 unit building, let's say on the south side of Chicago or somewhere where there's opportunities. You buy a 3 or 4 unit building, you live in 1 unit, and there's also a strategy where you can potentially Airbnb that unit and then you rent out the other units. The benefit with this is that, for one, you get to live somewhere. Two, you get to live there for free because you hopefully would have tenants that are paying you on time. They're paying you rent. So you have, if you're in a 4-unit building, you have 3 tenants paying you rent on time, whether it's Section 8 or whatever you want to do. 3 tenants paying you, and ultimately you won't have a mortgage. You've just cut out your biggest costs. Housing is usually your biggest expense. So on a person's budget, you'll typically see about 30 to 40% or so going towards their housing. So if you can cut that 40% out of it, now you're able to take that 40%, and my advice, save it somewhere and get the next property the next year. That's how you accumulate wealth. It's not the fastest pace. There's different ways to get there even faster. But, I tell my clients, hey, try to buy 1 property a year, whether it's using a house hacking strategy or a similar strategy. But I would say try to start with the house hacking strategy because it allows you to get in at a good rate. And here's some bonuses. You can buy the property with as little as 3.5% down payment. It's known as the FHA loan or the Federal Housing Administration loan. This allows you to buy a 1 to 4 unit building with as little as 3.5% down payment. And they do have down payment assistance programs that allow you to essentially not put anything down because the government can fund you. Now, are there downs? Does it sound too good to be true? Yeah, it can seem that way. It's possible. It's certainly possible. Things you need to have some income history. You need to have at least a 580 credit score, which is very doable. Your debt to income ratio usually needs to be below 43%. And it's very hard to find a good property nowadays. Those are some of the challenges of doing a strategy, because some people, if somebody comes in with pure cash, they're always going to have an upper edge or upper advantage over you because they have the cash. The seller doesn't have to go through the process of approval and all that stuff. Cash is truly king when it comes to investing, real estate, all that good stuff. But it's doable. I know my clients right now are doing it. They're doing it right now. I have a friend who just bought a 3-unit building, lives in 1 unit. He's renting out the other 2 units, and he's working on his next property. So next year he'll do the same thing. Move out of that unit, put a tenant in there. Now he has income in that property, so more income. And then he moves into another 3-unit. Now he has 6 units, and then the next year he'll have 9 or 10 units. And then he might take all of those and put it into an apartment building known as a 1031 exchange, which is a little beyond the scope of this presentation, but it's a strategy nonetheless. My advice, try to accumulate 1 property a year. It's very hard to do 1 a year. If you can't do 1 a year, try to do 2 a year. Try to do once every 2 years. That is very doable. How you do this? Let's put some numbers on paper. You buy a 4-unit building on the south side of Chicago for $300,000. And keep in mind, some lenders, most I should say, will allow you to use the rental income towards your debt to income ratio. So the rental income the property is generating, they will allow you to use that towards towards your debt to income ratio. So your debt to income ratio would be lower because now you have more money essentially coming in. So let's say you buy a $300,000 building on the south side of Chicago and you decide to live in 1 unit, and the other 3 units are making you, let's say, $1,000 per month each unit. These are 2 to 3 bedroom apartments within a 4-unit. So $3,000 a month, and your mortgage on a property like that would be roughly, let's just say, worst case scenario, $2,000 per month total cost of the mortgage. $3,000 minus $2,000 equals $1,000 cash flow, net positive cash flow every single month. You take that $1,000 and you put it somewhere, whether it's a money market account, a high interest savings account, an investment account that can yield a return. That's $12,000 for the year. This isn't a perfect world, of course. You might have repairs and all that, but you have $12,000 sitting in an account that allows you to do something with it. Now, here's my challenge to you. Remember, $2,000, you would have had to pay this as a mortgage. So how about, instead of you that $2,000, take the $2,000 that you would have been paying, take that $2,000. So now it's $2,000 plus $1,000. So basically all the money you're making in rent, throw it in an account. At the end of the year, 3,000 times 12, that's $36,000. There's no way in the world you cannot get another property with $36,000 in the bank and history of rental income. You know, banks love two things: someone who pays on time and has history, and someone who has money in the bank. So with that being said, you take this $36,000 and you put it into another property. Now the next year, you have another 4-unit building. And now, let's just say the same thing. Now you move out of that building. You have $4,000 a month coming in. Your mortgage is still $2,000. So now you have $2,000 cash flow. That's $24,000. So for the next year, you have $24,000 in income. And then you have another set of, let's say, $3,000. Let's say the same scenario. You have $3,000 coming in. You take away the $2,000 money that you should have been paying. So $1,000 essentially. That's $12,000. So you're taking, let's just say you're taking $24,000 plus $12,000. That's $36,000. Remember the challenge. Try to put whatever you're making. So all in all, this property makes you $4,000 on one property and then $3,000 on the second property because you live in one of the units. So you can't rent that unit out. $4,000 plus $3,000, that's $7,000. $7,000 times 12, let's do the math really quick. Let's pull out the calculator. $7,000 times 12 equals $84,000. There's no way in the world that you cannot buy a property with $84,000 down payment. So then the next year, you have another property. You have another 4-unit. So that's 12 units now. At that point, you don't even need to work anymore, to be honest. I mean, of course, maximize your utility and, you know, keep doing what you do. My advice is you can accumulate 40 properties in 40 years by using this strategy. Is it easy? No, certainly not. There will be challenges along the way. For example, there's a maximum amount of loans you can have in your personal name, and that's where you have to look at commercial loans. That's where you have to look at creative financing strategies, which we're about to get into here. But my advice, anybody who's looking to get into real estate, start with this strategy. Start with this strategy because it's huge. It's big. Forget about this whole flip this house and this and that. It's nice. It sounds good. It sounds really sexy to be able to flip a house, you know, turn it pretty, this and that, flip this, flip that. It's nice. But when you have a strategy like this, when you can accumulate wealth at such a fast pace, you know, it's huge. Now, couple this with a business. So once you continuously accumulate, let's say you decide to leave your full-time job and pursue something that you really want. I mean, this will have you exploding all over the place. I mean, this will really set you apart. So my advice to people is to eliminate your housing costs by using a house hacking strategy. Nowadays, it's easy to get these loans. You know, it's if you meet the requirements, you know, below 43% debt to income ratio, you know, decent credit. All you need is a 580. Of course, you probably should aim for higher than that. But the point is, you can really, really get in really good if you just utilize these strategies. Like, it's nice to have these real estate conferences and all that, but I do highly advise that you attend these 3-day workshops, 4-day workshops. Always increase your education when it comes to real estate or anything in life in general. But this house hacking strategy can really set you apart from the masses. So my advice to acquire real estate, the best way to get started in real estate, in my opinion, in my expert opinion, is using a house hacking strategy. You can accumulate wealth at a really, really, really fast pace. Really, really fast pace. So for those that missed what I just said, basically you're using what's called an FHA loan to acquire a 3 to 4 unit building. It could be 2 units, but I don't like 2 units. 3 to 4 units are recommended. You acquire a 3 to 4 unit building. You live in one of the units and you rent out the other units to tenants. They're paying your mortgage. You're taking the money that you're making in income, you're stashing it away somewhere, And then the next year you get another property. Then the next year you get another property. Then the next year, and it keeps rolling and rolling. Compound interest, building that wealth over time. So that's called house hacking, FHA, however way you want to call it. So that's the traditional way of buying real estate. And remember, I advise anybody getting started in real estate, this is how I advise you get started. But there are plenty of ways to buy real estate outside of this. If you say, hey, this is not as sexy as I think it is, it's too slow, prices, things are too expensive, so be it. I mean, this is only advice. I can only advise you. You don't have to take my advice, of course. But if you're looking for other ways, there are other ways too. There's plenty of ways to buy real estate, trust me. Banks will come in handy at some point in the journey, for sure. But can be tough to get initial financing. I'll share with you a secret. I unfortunately did not start out with the house hacking strategy because I didn't know about it. Nobody sat me down and taught me this. I learned after I bought my first property, and at that point it was a little too late. I can still acquire an FHA property, but at the same time, me personally, I don't really use banks that much. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, but 90% of the time I acquire real estate now without using an actual bank involved. So here are some other lenders, other financing strategies. There's a thing called a hard money lender. So one strategy to start with is a hard money lender. Hard money lenders are really known for flipping properties. But there are some hard money lenders that allow you, and one thing to know too, today's focus is on buy and hold real estate. I'm not a fan of flipping. I'm not a flipper, but it's nice, it's sexy. But today's focus is buy and hold. When you're holding property, when you're truly building wealth, you're holding that piece of real estate. So some lenders will allow you to buy real estate or properties with no money down. These lenders are referred to as hard money lenders. With a hard money lender, it's great for distressed properties or properties that need some rehab, properties that need some work, so they need some renovation. And what a hard money lender does is they can fund not only the purchase of the building, they will also fund the renovation. So I've bought a property, for example, using a hard money lender, and that's allowed me to ultimately buy a property using hard money funds. Now, here's a downside. Interest rates can be very, very high. You're talking 12 to 18%. Yeah, so so it's very important to know, the difference between the financing strategies. So hard money lenders, they're pretty expensive. They're not cheap. 12 to 18% interest plus points. I mean, points are extra interest. So you might get an additional 5% interest sometimes when it comes to this. Now, you'll probably wonder, why in the world would you do something like this? Well, it's better to have something than nothing. Essentially, that's the goal with this, is that you're looking to get into real estate, and these are different ways you can get in. Another thing with hard money lenders is there's pretty high fees at times. And it's really good only when you're starting out, when you don't really have any other options, or when you're just looking to accumulate extra properties and you don't really have any additional funding sources. Now, as you get more experience or as you gain more exposure to real estate, the interest and the fees do start going down as you build a relationship with the hard money lender. Now, here's where you really separate yourself. You can either sell or refinance the property to pull out some equity. This is the part a lot of people get wrong. So you buy a piece of property on the south side of Chicago for $50,000, and let's say it requires $50,000 in renovation. The hard money and let's say you can sell this property for $200,000. Hands down, the hard money lender will give you the property or the money, no money down, zero money down out of pocket. Now, here's the catch, though. You do want to have some money. Even if you're in a no money down deal, you do want to have some money in the bank in case things happen. Things can happen. Extra renovation, maybe some things that you didn't see coming. So you should always have money in the bank. But you don't have to necessarily. But I think you should, for sure. But basically, you take this property. You can either sell it. When you sell it, you trigger what's known as the long-term capital gain. Short-term capital gain, unless you fall within an opportunity zone fund, which we'll talk about in a second. Um, but ultimately, you can either do that or you can refinance the property. This is known as the BRRRR strategy, the buy, rent, rehab. Buy, rehab, rent, buy, rent, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat, essentially, is a strategy. So this is really good for long-term funding as well. So hard money lenders aren't just for, flipping. They're also good for buy and hold. Now with the buy and hold, you have to make sure you find your exit partner. So you have to have an additional partner. So you have to have been talking to. There's a company called Vizio, for example. They're a long-term funder, so they're a rental property funder. So let's say you fund through a hard money lender, and then you need a way to get out. You can make sure you contact the exit strategy person before you get yourself involved. So you have to, before you get into real estate, you should know how you're getting out of the real estate too. So before you ever do your first deal, you have to know how you're getting out as well. There's 3 ways out, and you certainly don't want the third option. You can sell it, you can refinance it, or you can lose it, basically. So, if you're looking to refinance, you have to have that refinance partner, the bank or a lending institution. I personally use Vizio for all of my refinance needs. Vizio does require, a credit score of at least 650 or so. Debt to income ratio, similar. Some of the loans, they don't require really a DTI or debt to income ratio. They don't require tax returns. They don't require minimum, stated income. It's really very, very flexible. Only thing is you might pay a higher interest rate. Or you can also use a traditional bank like a JP Morgan Chase. You can use one of these mortgage companies. You have Fairway. You have there's a lot of these banks and financial institutions out there. But you must identify who that person is before you close on that property. Because what if you do everything, you've rehabbed it? One of the hardest parts, of course, in real estate is rehabbing the property itself. That has its own challenges. So, make sure you find a good, reliable contractor to work with. It's very, very, very important. Very, very, very important. And yes, Vizio is Visio. If you need hard money lenders, there are a few out there. There's Lending Homes. There's Do Hard Money. There's Lima One Capital. So those are the 3 sources that I usually use. Lima One Capital, Do Hard Money, and then Lending Homes. Those are the 3, some of the top 3 hard money lenders out there. Private, or as far as traditional or long-term loans, you can use a company like Vizio. Vizio is really good when it comes to this. Or you can use a traditional bank. So it's very important that you understand how to get out of the real estate. Before you get into real estate, understand how to get out of it too. That was the mistake that I made when I got into real estate, is I didn't think about all the things that I could do to get out. And the key with hard money, you got to get out quick. 1 to 3 months, 1 to 6 months, get out immediately. Those fees, that interest is very high. You got to get out ASAP, as soon as possible, because they do suck you up. I mean, they would drill you with fees. So it's very important that you understand. So hard money lenders are great for funding your real estate. Now, if you don't like hard money, you're like, oh my goodness, 12 to 18% plus points. I mean, that's ridiculous. I've used hard money before, and yes, they are expensive. Trust me. Next, you can do private money. One of my first real estate transactions was actually through private money. Private money doesn't sound as fancy as you think. It's simply friends and family. It's people that you know that have money and willing to trust you, to acquire some real estate. So with private money, it's very similar to hard money. Same concept. You're borrowing money, short term usually. It could be long term, but it's much lower interest. I usually pay my private investors or private lenders about 10 to 12%. So I'm still very generous. Way better than the stock market, and they get first position on the loan too. So if I have a run to Vegas or do whatever, they still get to keep the property. Much lower interest rates, usually no points. And they have more favorable terms because they're your friends, your family. They're very generous people. Remember, always have everything documented, do things legally and all that good stuff. And also make sure you're not trying to raise funds through the public, because you might need to do what's known as a public offering, or you might need to do syndication. And, there's a lot of these things that you might have to go through. If you're like, you cannot promote, hey, I'm looking to raise money for real estate, and our minimums are $5,000 to get in. Like, don't post that on Facebook. That can be viewed as a public offering. But if you're texting your friend, you're texting your mom, your spouse, whoever, saying, hey, I have this great deal, that's a private funding. They'll allow you to do that without going through the SEC or anything like that. So be very careful when you're raising funds through private investors or private lenders. Now, lenders usually collect interest. Investors usually want a return. There's a difference with that. Interest must be paid. Returns don't have to be paid. So essentially, an investor or somebody who's private can either be a lender, where they're lending you just like a bank, or they can be an investor, an equity holder in the property. Let's say they want a 30% stake in the property, and the profits, the losses, whatever. There's more risk for them, but there's also more reward with that. So definitely something to pay attention to. For me, I use a mix of hard versus private. I use mainly private money for all of my deals. We usually raise funds through private investors. So we'll buy a property, or we'll have a property, and we interview investors, or we have a list of investors. We say, hey, investor A, you like Southside, you like multifamilies, you have $10,000 to invest, you're willing to get in now, whatever we send you, you're willing to do it on the spot. And always set a deadline for the investor. Say, hey, I need your response by 5 p.m. this day. That will push them a little bit further. In real estate, it's very, very quick transactions. So we usually raise money through private investors. We find a nice building, and we get it under contract, and then we start raising the funds that way. Is it easy? Of course not. But it's very doable. So let's go through a little bit. Appreciate you, James. It's that awesome stuff right here. Keep it up, Jeff. Can you repeat the strategy, which we just talked about? So hard money lender, this is great advice. Planning on visiting his office. It's definitely Visio, VISIO. Shout out to Dion. Mr. Candy, always appreciate your contribution and always sharing the post as well. So those are a few ways. So we talked about the first thing is traditional funding through FHA loan or house hacking. You can also do a conventional loan as well, by the way, with house hacking. We talked about hard money lenders. We talked about private lenders, which are your friends and family or people you know. And now there's also seller financing or seller carryback. So sellers can act as lenders as well and give you a mortgage on their own property. It's good to do this if you're having trouble finding traditional funding. So one of the last properties we bought a building in Dalton. We bought it for about $42,000 essentially, and the seller only wanted $5,000 down. So we literally found a seller who is very flexible. We bought his property. He bought it at a tax sale auction. I think he got it for like $7,000, paid the taxes, and he sold it to us for $42,000. And the building is worth $65,000. We only had to put in about $10,000 in work, and now it's rented out to a tenant for $1,500 per month. It does have a 5-year balloon to the loan. So the seller funded us $35,000 loan from the seller. The seller's giving us the loan. We're paying him every month. The benefit with that, he's making interest. He's first position on the property. He's still on the title, so if anything happens, he takes his property right back until we pay him back, essentially. At the end of the 5 years, we can either refinance the loan or we can ask him to extend the loan. We can go to a traditional lender. We can sell the property. We can pay off. We can do whatever we want with the loan, essentially. It's very flexible. So it has a 30-year amortization or 30-year, it's set up as monthly payments for 30 years. But at the end of the 5-year period, the loan is technically due through a balloon payment. That's what you call a balloon payment because it's one big payment, literally. So $35,000 loan, and this is what we call seller financing. It's $5,000 down. We could have easily got that from a credit card. We could have easily gotten that from a a line of credit, short-term loan. So we could have bought this property no money down very easily. It did take $10,000 or so to rehab the property. And we have a tenant in there who's paying $1,500 faithfully every single month, which is roughly, let's do the math on that. Let's just calculate our return on investment, cash on cash return. So we're making $1,500 per month times 12. That's $18,000 for the year. Cash on cash return is determined by how much money you've put in out of pocket into the property. We've put in $5,000. Actually, the formula for cash on cash return is your total net operating income for the year. This property yields about $500 per month. If you take away, the mortgage, the utilities, or the water bill, we usually don't pay utilities. So $500 per month times 12, that's $6,000 profit for the year. Divided by $5,000 all in initially, that's a 120% return on investment the first year. That's not including the tax benefits we receive. That's not including the appreciation that we get. Real estate usually appreciates 6% per year. That's not including the mortgage paid down by the tenant or the principal paid down by the tenant. That's not including any of that. So 120% return on investment. Is this a good property to invest in? Absolutely it is. Of course, we did have to put $10,000, into the property as far as renovation. But most of that money, could have easily been a loan that we've gotten somewhere. But cash on cash is usually how much money initially went into the property. It's a very, very good investment on that end. But the seller can give you the loan on the property. We were having some trouble finding funding. Basically, the loan was too low. Banks don't like loans that low. It could be low credit scores. It could be whatever. Not enough income, debt to income ratio being too high. So a seller doesn't really care about these things. They just want the loan. They trust you. They see your they usually require you to submit your personal financial statement. It looks healthy, so they're willing to trust you. And remember, they have first position on the property or the loan. So if you default or if you go down, they take the property right back. You've already put a lot of work. They take it back. They sell it. It's their property still, really. You just have rights or you have ownership rights. You have equitable interest in the property. So we still own the property. It's just that the seller can always take the property right back if we don't pay them on time. It's a great way to buy property with little money and minimal qualifications. Works well with sellers who are retired, just looking for that consistent income. And also in a down market, it also really works well because sellers can't sell or, basically when lenders are forcing people to draw blood samples in order, to give them a loan. Retired landlords who they just want monthly payments. They don't want to deal with toilets, tenants, and termites, or the 3 T's. So that's essentially, what it is. So that's another way. It's called seller financing or seller carryback. Basically the same thing. Now another way is called subject to. This is very creative strategy. Basically, somebody can have an existing mortgage, and either they're behind, they're essentially behind on their payments, or they're on time on their payments. They just want to give you the rights of the property because they're tired of it. So you can take over somebody's existing mortgage with the consent, of course, of the bank, or without. The bank just want to get paid ultimately, and you can turn around and rehab the property. Usually these are distressed properties. So you can take over somebody's loan, literally take over the monthly payments. It could be no money down, but you're usually required to get in to the point where usually they're behind on their payments. So the reason why they're doing something like this, I had a guy, for example, who was about 5 months behind on his payments. He was on the verge of bankruptcy or on the verge of foreclosure. So why lose a property? Why lose the equity in your property? You still own the property. So why not let somebody like myself come in? I'll get you caught up, take over the loan, have an equitable interest in the property, rehab the property, and then either sell it for a profit and then cut you a check. Usually we cut the owner up front saying, hey, here, walk away, here's $10,000, hush money, whatever you want to call it. We take over the loan, you walk away, you don't have to do anything. or you can do a profit share where you split the profit with the seller. So you can either do that, or you can refinance the property, and now you have a nice rental property for the next 30 years or so, fully fixed up, that you can do whatever you want with it. So it's another way to get into real estate. It's called subject to, or essentially assuming the mortgage of somebody else who more than likely is behind on payments. So you're helping them. And remember, in real estate, our goal is to help people. We're not here to take advantage of anybody. We're just here to help. That person would have lost that property, lost their equity in the property to a bank that would have just took the property, sold it, done whatever. So they're at least getting something out of it. The key with real estate is everybody has to win, and everybody can win in real estate. The realtor wins, the attorney wins, the seller wins, the bank wins, you win, your investors win, the buyer wins, your tenant wins. I mean, everybody wins in real estate. It can be a win-win. It doesn't have to be a greedy, this hard-nosed, dog-eat-dog type of industry. That's not what real estate is. We're here to provide solutions to people. So that's subject to. That's another way to acquire real estate with little to no money down. Now, another way is through a tax sale. So a tax sale is an auction that's held by the counties. So most counties have a tax sale auction where they auction off outstanding property taxes. They're fed up. They got roads to get funded. They have teachers to get paid, pensions. They have a lot of things to pay. If people aren't paying their property taxes on time, how in the world are they going to be able to pay these things? So the county says, okay, well, you guys don't want to pay. Okay, well, we have things to fund, so we need to get paid. So since homeowners don't want to pay their taxes on time or at all, what they do is they sell the property taxes to investors like myself and issue what's known as a tax lien certificate that allows you to have a lien on the property. So the thing with this is, so the state, so you basically go to an auction, right? And so John Doe hasn't paid their property taxes, and the state in Indiana, for example, that's where we usually do it in Gary, Indiana. $500 certificates. They'll sell you, even if the property taxes on that property was $1,000 or the outstanding was $1,000, they'll sell you that for $500. You pay the $500. The county takes that money and they start funding, doing whatever. The key with this is the homeowner has a certain period of time to either pay you back with interest. In Indiana's 10% interest. They have 6 months to pay you back with 10% interest. Or guess what happens when they don't pay you back? You file a lien or you file a foreclosure against the property, and you get issued what's known as a tax deed. And now guess what? You own the property. You can rehab it. You can sell it, buy it ugly, sell it ugly to another investor. You can even sell your tax lien certificate to somebody else, and you're transferring the rights of that certificate to somebody. Those are for people who are more wholesalers. Or you take the deed, sell it to somebody else. You fix the property and sell it. And Gary, this is what we do. We take the property, we rehab it, and then we rent it out Section 8 or whatever. But essentially, the investor can foreclose on the owner and take possession of that property. You might say, well, this is wrong. Well, think about the people that are winning in the situation. The county is winning. Now their roads are funded, their schools are funded. The owner, essentially, they're getting rid of something that they didn't even want in the first place. If 6 months have gone by, and you have to send so many notices out, by the way. This is not like you're just coming into somebody's house and just taking their property. You're telling them that, hey, please pay your property taxes. And there's a tax sale each year in Indiana. There's usually 3 every single year. I believe there's one that just passed. Yeah, there was one that just passed, and then they have one in September. That's usually the online auction. Cook County usually also has one around this time of the year or so. And in Indiana, they get 120 days to pay you back with 10% interest. Excellent way to buy property, steep discount. We bought about 10 properties in Indiana, and a few were redeemed, so we got paid 10% interest plus a few, and made a nice profit. Best to buy abandoned properties that nobody wants. Do some type of rehab and Section 8 it. And you can utilize 0% interest rate credit cards, term loans, private investors, your own money. But this can be a no money down strategy, similar to a lot of the things that we're saying. as well. Now let's go to the comments on Facebook. Let's see what we have here. I agree with Jeff. Help people. Always help people for sure. So those are the strategies that you can use to acquire real estate. Now let's get into opportunity zones. So opportunity zones are a new way. It's a new way of, it's a nicer way of buying real estate and essentially saving on taxes. That's the key with opportunity zones. Opportunity zones are designated zones by the counties or the states or the cities to invest in properties in distressed areas. It incentivizes investors to invest in those areas because it can develop it, create housing, create jobs, and make the community a more stable community. So opportunity zone, and I'll tell you a secret right now, we're working on a $2 billion opportunity zone fund right here on the south side of Chicago. So that's something that we're working on right now. But with an opportunity zone fund, essentially you're taking money that you've made in an investment and you're putting it into an opportunity zone property. So you have to reinvest. Basically, the money that you make from an investment must be reinvested within 180 days into a qualified opportunity zone fund or a qualified opportunity zone property or investment. It could be a stock or anything. The qualified fund, if you're investing in a fund, it has to be a partnership or partnership, LLC, or corporation. This is a self-reporting, so there's no fancy process you have to go through. It's reported on a tax form. Ideal time frame to be in the zone is 10 years because after 10 years of being in an opportunity zone, you don't pay any capital gains taxes. So this is a great way for flippers, people who love flipping properties. At first, you could not do what's known as a 1031 exchange, like-kind exchange, where you're taking profits from one property or, profits from one property and put it into another. You could not do it with a flip. But now that we have opportunity zones, you can do that with flips because you're taking money from one investment, one flip, and put it into another flip. So it works well with flips. Rental properties, you don't have to really worry about it because we don't pay taxes on rental properties anyway, or we usually don't. And if we do, all we got to do is take the profits and reinvest it into another property. Now, you do have to improve the property. You have to rehab it and all that. So if you're not into turning ugly homes into pretty homes, then this is not for you. And then the taxable event, they say, is December 31st, 2026, if we'll still be around at that time. So overall, there's plenty of ways to buy real estate. I just share with you, so many, countless ways of buying real estate. Always educate yourself. Always, always. If you need education or materials, go on my website, jeffbadu.com. This article, I have this in article format. I'm also going to write a book on this. Hire a coach. Always hire a mentor, coach. Very important to have one. Whether you're paying for one or not. I pay for my coach. Every education that I do, I pay for. Put some money towards retirement. As you're making this money, make sure you're putting some away. Best to start with the FHA loan strategy, in my opinion, the house hacking. And continue building wealth until you own the world. That's my advice to everyone. So let's just get back into the Facebook. So many from, we got James here. So many great options. It's the ideal investment. Income deductions on taxes, equity building, sweat and payment appreciation, leverage. I have a book on this, by the way, that talks about the 6 benefits of owning real estate. Where else can you invest a small percentage and still get the majority of ownership? Honestly, there's not really a whole lot of investments out there. And that's probably the point of the comment, is that you can't really, how can you take, a bank will literally loan you money to buy real estate. They won't loan you money to buy stock, though. Because real estate is something, it's an asset. It's something you can touch. It's tangible. It's very easy for the bank to get the property right back if all else fails. And then, will this be available later? Just tune in. This is from Sandra, by the way. Will this be available later? All of my videos, all of my recordings, all of my radio segments are right available on my Facebook Live. Go on my Facebook page, Jeff Badu. And you can go to the video section, and you can find all my videos there, free of charge. No charge whatsoever. All the resources on my website. I also have a YouTube channel, also free of charge. You can go on my YouTube channel, check out a lot of these videos. We're about to do a 10 short snippet type videos but we also have the longer videos like these. These are always recorded, and these usually, so this radio segment, for example, has already turned into an article. So there's an article on my website about this right now, jeffbadu.com. And then it also it goes on my, of course, it's streamed live on my Facebook. From my Facebook, it goes on my YouTube channel. From my YouTube channel, it goes on my podcast, the Money Talks Badu Edition podcast. And then ultimately, it turns into a book. So this radio segment, for example, is going to turn into a book as well, talking about this more in depth and sharing some things. So with that being said, if you guys have any questions, please always feel free to reach out to me, 773-679-7198. Once again, 773-679-7198. Check out my website, jeffbadu.com, jeffbadu.com. If you need some services, visit BaduEnterprises.com. That's where all of our services are listed. But thank you all for tuning in to WJC 98.3 FM, your voice, your music, your station. And also, next Monday, I won't be here. I'll be in Vegas for the NABA convention. We have our 50th anniversary. Big shout out to NABA turning 50. And I'll also be at a bachelor party / client meeting, they called it. So I won't be here next Monday. I'll be in Vegas for 10 days, starting on Thursday. But, of course, we have people that run the operations and everything like that in Chicago. But if you need anything, please let me know. Thank you all once again for tuning in to WJC 98.3 FM, your voice, your music, your station. My name is Jeff Badu, and I look forward to continuously delivering you all some content. So thank you.
You're listening to WGHC 98.3 FM.
While yo, but we are nothing's friend from the first time. Touch us since then, why yo, get anything.